All right, thanks. Thanks for the confirmation. So again, welcome to the Zero to Lab, which is the pathway to CCI. This course we have created specifically for the CCI lab, which is basically an 8 hours hands-on exam. It is one of the challenging exams because you need to have the knowledge of a lot of fundamental technologies plus some of the advanced technologies like software-defined networking and programmability, including automation. So how exactly are we going to tackle this in this course? So in today's session, it's just an introduction. I'm going to explain you what is the CCI exam, CCI Enterprise Infrastructure exam itself, and how this course is designed to actually become comfortable with all these technologies and also become proficient by the end of the course. And you have a good chance of passing the exam after that. So we will discuss everything. You will have all your doubts cleared about how exactly the course is structurized and how will we go week by week into different technologies, and how are you going to do the practicals, what tools do we use, and what are the different aspects that you need to be aware of about that. So without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, this course is for CCI Enterprise Infrastructure Exam, or in just short, people just call it CCI Enterprise Exam, which used to be called CCI Routing and Switching Exam before. And this exam is divided into two parts. Of course, you need to first of all do a written exam or a multiple choice question exam, which is called a CCI Qual or Qualification Exam. Now, back in the days, what used to happen is that CCNA was a different certification, then there was CCNP, and then you had a dedicated CCI Qual written exam that you need to pass before you can actually book a lab. So there was a dedicated exam for that. But now what they did is that they have combined the CCNP and the qual part so that you also save some money. You don't have to do an extra certification. Because in CCNP you need two exams to be passed to become the CCNP certified. One is the core exam, which is called NCore, and another one is one of the concentration exam that you can take like NRC. So you become CCNP certified. But if you do NCore, if you pass the NCore exam, then you also qualify to be able to book the CCI lab anytime within the next 3 years. So two things improved. One thing is you can take the exam, which is part of your CCNP journey. And second thing is, unlike earlier where you used to have 18 months to book the lab after passing the qual exam or qualification exam, now you actually get 3 years because NCore exam is valid for 3 years and you can book the lab exam anytime within that period. Now, having said that, what about the lab exam? So lab exam itself is called the CCI Enterprise Infrastructure version 1.1 as of now. So there could be minor updates in the version meanwhile. And anytime if there is any update, we are going to incorporate that into our live training as well. So you can rest assured that because it's a long course, if anything changes, we keep an eye on that, and then we make sure that we include that information into our course as well, right? So this course is called Zero to Lab, which is going to prepare you for the lab part of the exam. But in case if you haven't passed the NCore exam yet, or if you are preparing for it, this course is also going to help you immensely in that part because we will cover all the topics that are needed for NCore as well. Although NCore is a theoretical exam, so while your knowledge, the knowledge that you're going to gain about different technologies or protocols in this course is definitely going to be very, very helpful. But you also need to go through some like MCQs and some practice questions to understand how Cisco asks questions just before going for the exam. So if you're preparing for NCore, or if you plan to take it soon, you can talk to me separately. You send me an email, and then we can discuss how you can get that done and then concentrate on the lab part only. But in case if you plan to do it later, also like after 5-6 months or maybe before the end of the course, that is also fine because a lot of information from this course can be very, very useful and helpful in the NCore exam as well, right? So for this course, as it is concentrating on the lab part, let's understand what exactly do we have into the CCI lab exam. So the lab exam, as we know, or you might be aware about this, that it's an 8 hours hands-on based exam. And this is divided, these 8 hours are divided into 2 parts. So first part is called the design part, which is 3 hours. And this one actually contains the multiple choice questions, drag and drop questions. They might actually show you some screenshot of an email exchange between an IT manager and an employee, and there might be some output of show commands, and you have to just deduce your answer. You have to get your answer from these outputs, right? So there is no configuration into the design part. They will not ask you to click on the devices and configure them. Most you will get is multiple choice questions, or maybe you have to look at the output of some show command, some debug command, some configuration output or configuration accepts, and you will have to come up with the answer, right? So this part is actually, I would say, easier because if you are already preparing for encore, most of the MCQ type of questions you have dealt with already. So design part is actually not that difficult. Also, if your fundamentals are clear, design part will become extremely easy. Like if there is an issue with the EIGRP neighborship between two routers, and they show you some output of the configuration and some of the show commands, you will be able to easily find out what is the issue. And for that, you need to know what's supposed to be there for EIGRP neighborship to come up. What are the things that must match, like ACE number or authentication configuration? And what doesn't need to match, like timers do not need to match in EIGRP, unlike OSPF. So when you have these specific information about the protocols, it will become quite easy to get the design part done. And once you're done with this, the second part of the exam is the bigger part, and that's where the configuration comes in. Deploy, operate, and optimize. This is 5 hours, and it has three major sections. You have the old routing and switching section, old in the sense that the classic routing and switching part, where you have to configure switching protocols, routing protocols, VPN like MPLS, PMVPN, quality of service, multicasting, any IP services. Those things actually go into the routing and switching section. So this IP version 6 also. So this section becomes quite large. This is actually the biggest section of the exam, and it is going to take the most time out of your 5 hours to configure, because although these are the traditional technologies or your routing and switching core technologies, but there are many, so you need to actually take some time to complete this part. Second section of the exam is software defined networking, in which we actually decouple the control plane and data plane. So the data plane is still on the devices, but the control plane is actually placed on a centralized device, which we call the controller. And sometimes we also have a management plane, which is like a GUI to configure the controller and get things done or push the policies to the data plane device. Now, this logic of software-defined networking can be used on the LAN side or campus side, which is called SDA, software-defined access, and Cisco DNS Center is the controller for that. Or it can be implemented on the WAN side. So SD-WAN, that's a solution from Cisco. And the controllers in case of SD-WAN will be the vSmart, and the management side is vManage and vBond, which is the orchestrator. So we'll see both branches. And this part, although is new, but you will see that it will be overall easier than routing and switching, because once you understand the logic, everything is GUI. You don't need to remember many commands, maybe few here and there, but mostly it is GUI. So it is about how much you practice, and it becomes easier once you have the information that what I need to do, where do I need to go, right? And what will be the ordered steps that I need to follow. And the smallest part in the exam is programmability. So programmability is not going to take you more than 30 minutes, I would say, in the exam, to be honest, 15-20 minutes. But of course, for those 15-20 minutes, you need to have the knowledge of some of the core protocols that we need for this, like netconf, resconf. We are also going to learn the basics of Python, because you will need the networking module of Python so that you can automate these netconf or resconf requests of configuring devices remotely. We're also going to learn some of the in-house automation on the Cisco devices. Like there's a module called EEM, or embedded event management, which can actually automate things within the Cisco router. and how EEM scripts can actually be called upon based on some events. So if something happens, you can call the EEM script automatically and some actions can be taken. For example, if there is a very, very important interface connected to one of the customer and that should not be shut down by anyone. So if somebody by mistake shut down that interface, EEM can kick in and no shut the interface and also log the username who did this, at what time did he do that. You can also send an email. So all this automation you can do, basic automation within EEM. But what makes it powerful is that you can actually combine EEM with something very interesting, which is called on-box Python. So in Cisco iOS Xcie series routers like CSR routers, you can actually spin up a container within the router, and this container is a separate full Linux operating system. So it is called Linux container within the Cisco router, and in that Linux container you have Python. So that Python can actually interact with the host router where you are hosting that Linux container, and when you combine that Python and EM power, it can become extremely powerful automation and programming module that we are going to learn as well, right? And we're also going to talk about different structures or data structures that are used in programmability, XML, JSON, JavaScript object notation, YAML. What is the differences between these? What do we mean by Yang data models? What is the importance of those things? So these are things that we are going to cover into the programmability part. And of course, we are going to see some practicals as well, as far as the programmability part is concerned as well. And you will see that how in the exam, these sections are actually also ordered in the same way. You start with the routing and switching. So with the fundamental topics, you start by configuring layer 2 first, and on the top of layer 2 you need to configure layer 3. And once the layer 2 and layer 3 are working, that's your core infrastructure. Then you can configure other things on the top of that. You can configure VPN technologies, you can configure security, you can configure IP services like DHCP, DNS, IPSLA, policy based routing, PBR. These things can only work if your underlying layer 2 and layer 3 are working properly, and your layer 3 will not work if your layer 2 is not working, right? So you can see everything is just like in an OSI model, everything is layered, and you need to make sure that a certain layer is working before we move to the next layer. That's why we concentrate first on the individual topics. That's the first part of our course will be single protocol labs. So every week we are going to concentrate on one technology, and sometimes more than 1 week also if the particular topic is big, like OSPF or BGP can take multiple weeks. And every week we are going to concentrate on some certain part of the technology. We'll make sure that we understand it properly, and then we do hands-on lab on that, right? And then you will see that when you do this week by week, you solidify your understanding of individual protocols. That's why they are called single protocol labs. But once you are done with all the single protocol labs, we will also have full exam like multi-protocol labs where everything is configured on the same topology. So you build up with layer 2, then layer 3, then VPN technologies, security technologies, QoS, multicasting, SD-WAN, and programmability, right? So in exam, although it looks like a lot of configuration, routing, switching, SDN, programmability, and you only get 5 hours, but the devices in the exam will be pre-configured or partially pre-configured. So you don't need to do anything from scratch. I still remember when CCI was started back in 1998, sorry, 1994, 95. That time they had 3 day CCIs. So you had to actually fly in the first day, physically rack all the devices. You need to physically connect the cables, all these things, and there was no configuration. You have to start from scratch. IP addressing. Second day was all these things, and third day was the advanced configuration. Then later they made it 2 days, and now it is only 1 day. So of course they also understand that it's a huge configuration, and they want to test you on the advanced technologies. They don't want to test whether you know how to connect a cable or not. That's why also they think that you already should know how to configure an IP address, how to unshut the port and all these things. So that's why devices will be partially pre-configured, in the sense IP addressing will already be there, Some of the routing configuration will also be there. Some things will be missing. That's what you need to configure. So let's say if you're talking about one of the headquarters or branch, one of the branches, OSPF, let's say, is already configured and it's already working in between most of the devices. But maybe there are two devices which are not forming the neighborship. So it becomes like a partial troubleshooting slash configuration task that you will need to do, but it will not be much. So that's how you need to configure. Some of the other things like DMVPN, dynamic multi-point VPN tunnels will be already configured, but of course, key information will be missing from somewhere or the other, so that all the tunnels are not coming up, and you need to just add that information or fix that information in the exam. So that's why it's not exactly uh, blank to everything. It's actually partially configured to completely configured. That's where you will need to take the configuration. And how do you configure the devices? So there will be instructions, of course. That is what we call the multi-protocol lab that we will also do in our course. So there will be instructions for every section. So there is a section for layer 2, there's a section for layer 3, there's a section for IPv6 and multicasting and QoS and all these. So you will have sections, and then there will be subsections. Like in switching or layer 2, they might ask you to configure VLANs and trunking or fix some part of the VLANs and trunking. Then will come Ether channel, which is the link aggregation. Then comes the spanning tree protocol, which is the biggest layer 2 topic, and so on. Similarly, in routing, they will ask you to configure. There will be different subsections like EIGRP, OSPF, BGP, these kind of things. And then there will be VPN, so DMVPN and MPLS and IPsec tunnels for security and security slash VPN configuration. So all these things will be instructed properly, that what exactly do they want from you and how do you configure it. Now, one thing you will notice, and we will also practice it a lot, so you will know that in the exam you're not supposed to you have to be careful of two things. First of all, you are not supposed to remove anything unless that is the only option. So if you can change some settings, or if you can add some configuration to make it work, that is the preferred solution, and you get the full marks for that. If you remove something, then you might not get the full marks, or you might not even get marks at all. So removing something should only be done from the configuration if that is the only option you can use. For example, let me give you an example. Let's say two OSPF routers and the neighborship is not coming up. So you start troubleshooting and you find out that there is a mismatch in the password. So on router 1, there is a password, let's say capital Cisco. On router 2, the password is small case Cisco, right? So of course, the password is not matching, so the authentication is not matching, so neighborship will not come up. So you need to fix it. So how do you fix it? So you can see that you are changing the configuration here. Changing configuration means you can either change one side to capital Cisco, so both sides it will be capital Cisco, or the other side you can change it to the small case Cisco. Ultimately, it has to be same, and the neighborship comes up. You have troubleshooted the issue and you have fixed the issue, and right. But second, somebody might think, okay, authentication is the issue. Let me remove the authentication command completely. So if there is no authentication configured, of course, membership will come up, but you are not going to get points for that, right? You need to fix the issue, not remove the root cause of the issue, right? That is something we need to remember. Second thing, which is also very important in the exam, is you have to provide a solution within the context of the question. So if the question is about OSPF neighborship issue, and that's why there is a reachability issue, you cannot say, okay, let me go ahead and create a couple of static routes here and there, and then there will be reachability. Of course, you can make the reachability there by just configuring static routes for sure. But the question was about OSPF, and you went out of the context of OSPF to fix the issue, and of course you will not get any points for that. So you have to try to avoid removing things unless that is the only option. And second thing, provide the solution within the context of the question. These are the things that we should always be careful about. And one thing I always tell my students, have a habit to save your configuration often, because I have seen some cases where people have completed the lab, forgot to save anything, and they got no marks. They failed the exam, because what they do is, after you're done with the exam, you are out of the lab, they reboot all the devices before scoring your or checking your score or pointing your score. So if they reboot and you did not save anything, all your configuration will be gone. So having a habit to do one subsection and saving it, another subsection and saving it, that's a good habit to have. So that is something you will have lot of time in this class to do that, but you should actually have a habit to save the configuration often, right? Otherwise, it can become tricky in the exam in some sections where there is a lot of configuration or there are a lot of challenges and you forget to save the configuration. That can cost you dearly, right? So we don't want to do that. We need to have a habit of saving the configuration often. So having said that, how exactly this course is going to help you? So how this course is structured and how are we going to make sure that we become comfortable in all the technologies I just mentioned, including core technologies, software-defined networking, and programmability. So the course structure we have here is we have the classes once per week. Now, when we were creating this program, me and Christian and I both were thinking, okay, we need to see what is the issue right now in most of the other courses. So most of the CCI courses you see out there, the live instructor-led courses, I mean, they are bootcamp style courses. Bootcamp means you have a 7 days bootcamp, or maximum I have seen like 10 days bootcamp. That is actually not enough time to go through such a large number of a huge number of topics that we have in deeply, and also becoming expert in, because this the certification itself is called internet expert. So you can't expect people to know 100 different topics, not only know the topics, also know the commands, and also become comfortable with troubleshooting and configuration and everything within 10 days. So these kind of courses, we thought, okay, that is something, big thing is missing in these courses. They are completely hands-on, and mostly the instructor is showing all the configuration, and the classes are like 8 to 10 hours. So after you are done with so many topics in the same day, they say, okay, in the night now you can practice, because next day we will have a new set of topics. So you get very little energy and a lot of topics to be covered to practice again in the evening. And in no time, the 7 days have passed, and you end up with basically nothing. So you still need 6 months to practice everything that you learned. Maybe you will get a workbook from there, maybe you will get some recordings, but you will still need 6 to 8 months to practice on your own to cover everything. So those kind of courses are good if you're already prepared for the exam, you have done everything, and you just need one more boost. Then you just want a refresher, so that can be useful. But if you are really serious about preparing, let's say you're coming from CCNA or CCNP and you want to start preparing, you want to start creating fundamental knowledge for your CCI exam, uh, that is not practical at all. And even people who pay for that and go through that still have to spend another 6 to 8 months to make sure they are prepared. And the worst thing is that in those 6 to 8 months, they are on their own because the course is already finished. So there's very little to no motivation to keep going, especially when the life kicks in. You have your own work, you have your personal life, and then suddenly the topics also start becoming more challenging. So it's not very easy to do it on your own. So that's why we thought, let's create a program where we are going to go once per week, and we are going to concentrate on one topic per week. So what happens with this approach is that when you come to the class, of course, you might be coming with CCN and CCNP knowledge. Maybe you are working in industry for many years, so you already have a lot of knowledge about some technologies. But I am going to assume that we are going to start from scratch. So we have no knowledge of the technology. The benefit of that is, let's say if I'm starting a spanning tree protocol, that is something we learn in CCNA, again in CCNP, now again it is coming in CCI. But I'm going to start it from scratch as if you have never heard of STP before, and then we'll take it all the way to the CCI level that we need, so that you get all the loopholes covered, right? So if there are any things that you missed before or you forgot, it will be refreshed. So you will bridge the gaps. And if it is completely new to you or you haven't done it ever, because sometimes you study it and then you never use it again, so you are covered there as well, right? So we are going to cover deep theoretical knowledge about that, fundamental knowledge of the STP, and then it will be backed with a lab. So lab means it's a configuration that we'll do step by step for a That's why you'll see that these classes are 2 hours per session, where roughly the first hour will be topic discussion, where I will be explaining you the details of the configuration and the logic and the concept. And I always divide every topic into 3 questions, right? What exactly are we covering? Why do we need this technology? Like what problem is it solving? And of course the big question, how to configure it, how to troubleshoot it, right? For example, if we are going to start spanning tree protocol, what exactly is STP? It's a loop prevention mechanism in layer 2 networks. Why do we need that? Because in layer 2 networks we don't have any inherent loop prevention, so there is no TTL into a frame header, unlike an IP header. So time to live, which actually decrements from 255, right, on every router. So if a packet is looping through a routed network, after 255 hops, it is going to be dropped. But in switching network, if a frame is looping, it will loop infinitely unless you physically introduce a break somewhere in your network. So you see the problem then, and you understand, okay, that's why we need a solution like this. And then how does it work? So that's the big question. The third one, how? And that's what we cover into the theoretical section. But of course, once you understand the logic, you want to see this in action. So that's where the second hour comes into the picture, where we are going to configure a lab on the same topic. Now, this is also within the Zoom session, right? So you don't need to do it that time. You don't need to actually listen to me, see what I'm doing, and also doing it on your laptop. That is going to completely ruin your concentration. So within the Zoom session, I don't want you to do the lab at all. You just need to concentrate on the screen. I will be doing the lab step by step, reading the instructions and then configuring the devices for you. And of course I will not be quiet. I will be explaining exactly what we are doing and why we are doing, so that whatever you learn into the theoretical part, it solidifies your understanding more by looking by checking or seeing that how practically it works right in the lab. And once this part is done, the same lab along with the solution file will be sent to you by email. So you will have the tools which we'll discuss in the next slide, that what tools we are using. So the tools will be set up, and you will have the lab along with the solution file. So you will be able to do this lab as many times as you want within that week, because we will have the next live Zoom session next week. So that's the reason why we have structured it in this way, week by week, so that when we cover something, you have ample time to practice it on your own as well, right? Now, although I'm saying it is the class is 2 hours and like 1 hour theory and 1 hour practical, these are just the indicative number, just to let you know the basic idea. Because this course is not time driven, it is topic driven. So it depends. Sometimes the topics will finish before 2 hours. Sometimes it may take more than 2 hours as well, right? It depends on the topic. And same thing goes for the theory and the lab. Sometimes the theory will be short and the lab will take more time, or vice versa. Sometimes the theory will take more time, the lab will take 15 to 20 minutes only. So this is just to give you a structure, but in reality, our session will depend on the topic, right? It's a topic driven course. Of course, when I send you the lab, why am I sending you the solution file also? Because you need to change your mindset about this course. When you are doing this course, you are not testing yourself. The test will come when the test will come, right? Right now, you are in the learning phase, so you have to do a paradigm shift. You have to get into your learning mode. And of course, when you are into the Zoom session, when I'm explaining something, naturally you are into the learning mode because you are trying to understand the concept. But generally, what happens when people do the lab on their own, they immediately or subconsciously switch to testing mode. Okay, I'm testing myself. Do I recall what I learned into the Zoom session? No, no, no. You don't need to do that. The lab is also created to solidify your understanding, right? So when you are doing the lab, feel free to check the solution as many times as you want, because when you get stuck somewhere and you go and check the solution, subconsciously you register it as many times as you do it, that okay, this is how it is done. So you can definitely check the solution file. And of course we will also have the recordings of the class. So of course the class recording might be from one of the previous classes, not from this latest class, but it is the same zero to lab class, so the topics will be same. And because in every zero to lab class we use the same structure, same topics, so that's why we don't keep multiple recordings on the portal. But let's say if I'm covering OSPF today, In the recording also, you will see everything that you need to see, and you will see the same lab solved that we will do into the Zoom session. So as far as the lab is concerned, in the recordings, you will get me. You will be able to see me going through the theory again and configuring the lab as well. And you can watch the recording as many times as you want. Right? It's a lifetime access for the recordings. So if any issue, you can refer to the solution file if you get stuck somewhere. In case if the solution file is not clear, you can check the recordings. And if you see that something is not clear into the recording, or you forgot to ask a question in the live Zoom session, something is not clear, you can definitely ask me as well. That is another strong point of this course, is that you have the instructor support throughout the course. It's not a 7-day boot camp where I say bye bye to you and then you are on your own. We are in this together in the whole journey until you get your certification. And that's why this course becomes quite unique, right? Because you can ask me questions on the Facebook group that we have for Zero to Lab. And you can also ask me questions right below the video. Like if you're watching the recording later, you will see that below every recording, there is a comment section. And if you type your question there, that also comes directly to me, right? Email we don't actually recommend, because email mostly we use for the more procedural work, like sending the labs, or sending the welcome labs or calendar invites for these things mostly. So for troubleshooting questions or any technology question, the Facebook group is the best place, because you can also post photos, screenshots, and there are other students who can help or can get help from your question, and I can answer you there. Or if you are watching a recording and at some point into the video you say, okay, I want to know more about this point, so you can pause it, type your question in the comment, send it to me, and then go back watching your video, and that question also comes directly to me. So these are the better methods to ask the questions, right? So when I say that I'm going to send you a lab along with the solution file, let me show you an example of that. For example, if we have an MPLS lab today, so I'm going to send you a lab something like this. So let's say we are on the second lab of MPLS, so MPLS lab 2. So there will be instructions what needs to be done on a certain topology, right? So the topology that you will use, we are going to use EVNG for this virtualization emulator. And in this emulator, you will have different topologies. So for example, we will have a base topology like this. So I'll send you a diagram which is going to show you the boundaries for the MPLS implementation. So just to give you an example, you will need to configure the MPLS backbone here. So this will be like a service provider network, and then the customer will be router 6 and router 7 on the left hand side, and router 5 and router 8 on the right hand side. And you need to make sure that they can communicate end to end using the MPLS L3 VPN configuration. And how exactly to configure it, that's what I'm asking you into this lab. There are instructions what needs to be done. And when you try to do this, of course, this is something I'm going to show you in the live Zoom session step by step, after explaining you the MPLS fundamentals theory, right? So this will be covered in the recorded live Zoom session, and it will be recorded and it will be available to you. But when you are doing it during the week, that time I will also send you the solution file. So you will also get this answer file where you will have the configuration exactly that you need to do to get things done as they ask into the question, right? So this is just to give you an example. And this is an example of a single protocol lab, right? Because we are concentrating only on MPLS in this lab. But once we are done with all the single protocol labs, we will actually switch to this giant topology, where we will configure many different protocols at the same time. This is called multi-protocol lab. So in this one, we see that we have headquarter, data center, internet, and we have DMVP antennas going to different branches, which are connected via this service provider. If you're wondering why there is only branch 3 and branch 4, where is branch 1 and branch 2? So branch 1 and branch 2 are actually SD-WAN branches that we will cover into the second multi-protocol lab. So we will have multiple multi-protocol labs as well to cover all the technologies, right? So this is just to give you an example that we use. And then for multi-protocol lab also, similarly, we will have the different sections but it will be part of the same multi-protocol lab. So you can see we will start with layer 2, and then we'll go to FHRP, then layer 3, which is OSPF in this case, then later EIGRP, IPv6, and so on, right? So BGP, DMVPN, and all these things will be there, part of the same topology. So this is something also I'll send you along with the solution file when we come to the multi-protocol part, but that's actually very far. First, we need to cover every individual topic separately so that we feel comfortable in those topics before we configure everything at the same time, right? So how can this program help? Most of the things I've already mentioned. So let's go through this quickly. What exactly you are going to get? Uh, what is the unique benefit that you are going to get from this program? So the main thing missing in a lot of programs is a lot of practice, right? So you have to do it on your own later if you are doing through a bootcamp or something. This is something we already discussed. So this program addresses exactly this issue, right? With a lot of different things. For example, all the single protocol labs configured and explained by me within the live Zoom session, and then I will send the PDF file to you so you can do it during the week, right? And so detailed solution file, practice labs. We also are going to have Q&A sessions to clear any doubts. So there will be a short Q&A session into every live Zoom session. So let's say once I'm done with the topic of the day, I'm going to say, okay, any questions, let me know from today's session or from the previous sessions. So you can ask me some questions. But if you have a more detailed question or there any issue with the configuration that you are facing, Facebook group would be a better place because you can place the screenshots, you can write down a detailed explanation what you are facing, and it will be easier to troubleshoot that way. But if you have some quick questions about technology or about the topic we covered, we are also going to have a Q&A within the live Zoom session at the end of the session as well. So we are also going to cover software-defined networking in depth, SD-WAN and SDA, programmability and automation. We already mentioned before. We are going to cover this as well. And I just showed you the multi-protocol labs. So full actual exam like multi-protocol labs are also there. So the diagrams that we are going to use for multi-protocol labs, they are the diagrams from the actual CCIE lab. So it's actually Cisco doesn't hide the original topology they use in the exam because it's not a design exam. They don't want to shock you with the design and then you have to understand the design first. They want you to know the design in and out before you go for the exam. They want to test your configurational knowledge and troubleshooting knowledge of the infrastructure technologies, right? So that's why the lab design is exactly same, or the topology is exactly same as you would see in the exam. And troubleshooting tips. So troubleshooting is something I always strongly believe, and I have been training for more than 15 years. I have seen this a lot of time. Is that once your fundamental and the basic or the core knowledge is clear, troubleshooting becomes easy because troubleshooting means what's supposed to happen and that is not happening right now. So if you are deviating from the configuration or from the standards, then you end up with issues. And there are two types of issues, right? Configurational issues and the network performance-based issues. So performance-based issues, that there is something is a completely separate thing. They are not going to ask you in CCIE that why do you there is a link down or why do you have more delay on one link over the other, because those kind of things happen in real life, right? I also work as a consultant with many service providers, and I see all the time that most of the issues comes are okay, we have this managed service provider and we have two circuits, and one circuit is now currently underperforming, so we have to switch the traffic to the second circuit or automate these things. That's what SD-WAN is about. So mostly it is the performance issue in the physical network somewhere down the line. Configurational issues are more challenging because in performance issue, you can't do much. You just have to raise a ticket with the provider and they will have to fix the circuit on the layer 1 or layer 2 level. But when it comes to the configurational issues or issue with the technology, that becomes more challenging because you need to check it, you need to find the issue and you need to fix it. And there you cannot raise a ticket because it's in-house. Mostly the configuration issues are coming within your organization and you need to fix it, right? So troubleshooting becomes very important, and we are going to make sure that our fundamental knowledge is very solid so that troubleshooting becomes second nature. And of course, throughout this course, you will have my support. So anytime you have any questions within the Zoom session or on the Facebook group or in the comment section of the recordings, or if you have any setup issues, like initially, if you think that, okay, I have issue with my OVA or EVNG or VMware, that you can definitely send me an email directly, because setup issues can be fixed one-to-one as well, right? So no issue there. And of course, the cherry on top is lifetime access to the class recordings. So anytime you can come back. We know that life can kick in, and you can get busy. And if you have to come back, you don't want to lose all the information that you have learned. And if you want to do a revision, the recordings will be available to you for lifetime. And the good thing is that in case if there are new things added or some things are updated in the exam, we are going to add that also into the recordings, so that even if you check it out after 2 years, 3 years, and you see that there is a new version of CCI version 1.2 or something, we have included those things, of course, for completely free for you. So it is the lifetime access after that part, right? So having said that, what tools do we use for this course? So you must have received an email from me with the link to download the EVNG Windows Client Pack, and also the OVA. So the protocol or the software that we use is called EVNG, which is installed on VMware. So EVNG is an emulator. So emulator is different from a simulator. Simulator actually simulates an operating system, right? Internet operating system, or iOS, from Cisco routers or switches. Just like packet tracer, Cisco's packet tracer is a simulator where it's not actually the device; it is just mimicking the device, like how the device would show you the output and everything. It's not a complete operating system; it doesn't support everything. Emulator, on the other hand, like EVNG, it actually uses the real iOS images, real Cisco routers and switches images in the backend, and just the front end is not a hardware device. It's just a GUI on your browser, and then you can click on the devices and open the console. But once you open the console, you are dealing with the full flash operating system. That's why it supports all the features generally you would support in a real device as well, right? So EVNG is Linux based. It's a KVM, but it's something they have created very nicely with the GUI and everything. So you can actually connect multiple devices, create your own topologies. But that's the point. We know that even though EVNG is very useful and it is free, you can go to evng.net and you can download it on your own. But it is just a shell, right? It doesn't have any images by default. So you need to have some Linux knowledge. You need to copy. First of all, you need to somehow procure the images for routers and switches and firewalls or whatever you are practicing, SD-WAN, for example. And then you need to copy these images to the Linux operating system, which is in underneath the EVNG. You need to know some basic Linux also for that. And then you need to license them. Once they are properly licensed, you need to boot the EVNG again and then go to the browser, and there you need to start creating topologies. So you have to think, okay, how do I connect devices so that I can practice all the important things that are needed for CCI. So there is a lot of work if you do it on your own, and we wanted to remove all this hassle. We wanted you to concentrate on the technologies right from the day one. That's why we have created this OVA where the topologies are already set in EVNG. So we have already copied all the important operating systems, all the required operating systems into the backend Linux. We have already licensed them. We have already created the topologies that we think will be needed for all the important topics that we are going to cover from basic to advanced. And we have compiled all these things into a single file, which we call the OVA file. And that's the link I sent you on the email. So when you download the OVA file, the only thing you will need from your side is the VMware workstation for the Windows, or VMware Fusion if you are using Mac OS. Right? So once you install the VMware, then you can just import the OVA and you will have a full functioning and working EVNG there, right? So a single file is more than enough for that. And of course, these topologies that you see into the EVNG, they will be used with the labs, like I showed you the MPLS lab before, in these kind of labs. So the topology I showed you there, that topology is actually from our EVNG. So if I haven't closed it yet, like this topology I was showing you, this is actually one of the topologies we have in our EVNG. So once you import it into the VMware, now if you don't have VMware and if you don't want to download it from internet directly, you can, I mean not from directly from the site, you can also download it from our link, which also I have included into the email. So you can download VMware as well, a VMware workstation. So if you are using Mac OS, you will have to find the VMware Fusion. So yeah, we officially support Windows for this, because later you will also see you will need more resources, and there are some issues with like M series processors in MacBook. There are workarounds, but they will not be as efficient as you would use a Windows machine. So we would recommend to use a Windows machine, especially for the later part of the course. Initially, it's fine, because initially when we are dealing with switching and routing part, it should be fine to use Mac as well, right? So just to show you, once you import OVA into VMware, how does it look like? So once you import OVA and then you boot it, you will actually get to a screen something like this, where it will show you the name EVNG, default root password is EU, and then it says use HTTP colon double forward slash, and it shows you an IP address, and then it shows you a login prompt. So this is your EVNG backend Linux. You don't need to log in here. You just need to boot it, and you need to come to this screen. Once you come to this screen, what you need to do is you need to note down this IP address, which it shows here. In your case, it could be a different IP because you get it from DHCP. Note down the IP and open it in the browser. Why do we need to open it in the browser? Because that's where you get the EVNG GUI, where you will see all the topologies and you will be able to boot the devices and connect to the CLI of the routers and switches and SD-WAN and all devices, right? So let's open this in a browser just to see it as an example. So 79.137. Then it asks you for the username and password on the GUI. So the username password on the GUI is admin and EU. So EVE, which is the name of the software. That's the password. You sign in and you actually get to this screen. On the left hand side, you see all these names like base lab, multi-protocol lab, or ether channel MAC addresses, MST lab, STP lab 1, lab 2. These are the topologies. These are the different topologies we are using for different practical. You can ignore the 0 to CCNA that I added extra just for I was checking something. But in CCI, you will have mostly for layer 2, we will have different topologies, like we will use MAC address topology, where it's actually very simple topology. You can click on open. You can see that we just want to have some routers and switches connected like this. But then we can go more detail, like if you go to the base lab, this is what we will use for most of the layer 3 configuration. If you open the base lab, you will see a topology something like this, where we have 8 routers connected in this particular fashion. And currently the routers are switched off. So you will see that when you watch the recordings again, there is one video in the first week on the Zero to Lab portal, and that video is about EVNG setup. So I would highly recommend you to watch that as well. Although it's very easy, you just import the OVA, boot the EVNG, note down the IP, and open it into the browser. But still, if you watch that video, you will get a lot of information if you forget or something, or if you get stuck somewhere. So highly recommended to watch that video as well. But just to give you a quick idea, currently the devices are turned off. So you can right click on the device and click on start. Or if you want to start all the devices, you can go on this left hand side option menu, and you can go to the more actions, and you can click on start all nodes. Now I told you that you should have a habit of saving the configuration often. So when you're doing a lab and you are saving it again and again, the benefit you get here in Eve is that if you shut down the devices, shut down your laptop or PC also, come back in one day and then start them again, you will get the configuration right from that point, because you have saved the configuration right into the lab. So maybe you don't want to finish a particular lab in one sitting, so you can save it, and also you should have a habit of saving. But whenever you start the next lab, you want to go back to the base config. Base config means where you only have like IP addressing and nothing else, right? Just the IP addressing is configured. So how do you go back to the base configuration? How do you remove all the savings? Like if you are doing OSPF configuration, OSPF lab. Now you are starting the BGP lab and you want to remove all the OSPF configuration. So you can actually go to the more actions, and then you can click on the wipe all nodes. When you wipe all nodes, it actually removes all the extra configuration except the base configuration. It goes back to the base configuration, which is nothing but IP addressing. So this can be useful. So when you click on start all nodes, you will see that this box sign will change to a play sign, and the device color also will change to light blue color. And now the devices are started. So you will notice one thing, that you can click on the device and you can click on this open super putty or putty, and it will open it into whatever the software you're using in the backend, and then you can start configuring the device, right? But the thing is that in case if you, in your case, if you click on the device and it doesn't open putty or anything, that's where you will use the evenly Windows client pack, the second software I sent you into the same link where you download the OVA from. So if you're using a Windows machine, you can download, you can install that Windows client pack, and once you install that, you will actually see there will be a folder in your C drive. Let me see if I can open it here. Yeah, so you will actually see in your C drive under the program files, not the program files x86, but program files, you will see a folder created named evengy. C program files evengy. So if you go to that folder after installing the Windows client pack, if you go to that folder, you will see a registry file, bunch of registry files to create the entries for your client, for your terminal client. Look for the putty. You can see Windows 10 64-bit putty. Even if you're using Windows 11, don't worry about the name. So you can double click on this and it will say, do you want to add this to the registry? Just say yes. In my case, I already have it, so I will skip it. But yes, yes, and okay. And then after this, if you click on the device, you should be able to get a pop-up, or you should directly get the putty open, right? Like this. So that is something you should do as well. So we are going to use EVNG. And when I send you the lab files every week, you can actually practice on one of the topologies that we have there. And in the lab itself, I will mention that which topology you need to boot, because there are so many different topologies, STP or MST or Ether channel or base lab, right? Now, during the off days in a week, you are encouraged to do the labs again, and feel free to contact me in case of any questions, of course, right? No worries at all. So the event itself, as I mentioned, it's on the VMware. Topology is already set, and OVA file I've already sent you, so you can import it in the VMware. Now, what about the RAM requirement? So for the first part, where we are going to do the switching protocols, routing protocols, including BGP, IPv6, multicasting, QoS, even IP services, I would say 8 gig would be more than enough. And this I'm talking about how much RAM you have on your laptop or desktop, right? And out of this, you can give like 6 gig to the EVNG. Don't worry, it's not going to block the 6 gig. It starts using more and more as and when it needs. So maybe it will start with 2 or 3 gig usage only, and then it will eventually go more when you configure more things or start more devices. So 8 gig is recommended for that. But when it comes to SD-WAN, and I'll send you a separate OVA for SD-WAN when it comes to that part, 16 to 32 gig RAM is recommended. 16 gig would work, although it might work slightly slowly. 32 gig is perfect for SD-WAN. And that's why I always recommend the students that CCI is a long investment, right? It's a long course, and there are many detailed topics you're going to cover. So it's worth maybe spending $200-300 somewhere, like on the second-hand laptop or desktop from eBay, which has a lot of RAM. Processor wise, you don't need to worry. You don't need a very beefy processor. Anything older generation is also okay. i5 is also okay. You don't need i7, i9 or any latest one. But we need more RAM, for especially for SD-WAN part. So it's worth considering investing into a desktop or laptop. Desktop is preferred because better heat management, but the laptop will also work. Nowadays they have very good heat management. But the idea is that you should consider that if you don't have this much RAM already, and you should consider that not now, but maybe in 6 month time when we will reach to the SD-WAN part. So not immediately, but maybe you can plan this in the next 5 to 6 months. Right now, you are good. 8 gig will be more than sufficient. Of course, when you import the OVA, just make sure one thing, that your RAM is set to whatever you need it to be, like 8 gig or 16 gig. And the network interface is set to net so that you can get an IP address when the EVNG boots. You need that IP, right? This IP I'm talking about. You need this IP here so that you can open this in the browser and start accessing the devices. So first of all, the RAM you can see on the right hand side. You can set how much you want, and on the left hand side you can see the network adapter. The first one has to be set to NAT. Second one you can ignore. We don't even use that. So first one it has to be set to NAT, right? So that's it from my side. I just wanted to introduce the course and also the structure of the course. So what is expected from your side? Because it's a live course, weekly live. So just show up, do the labs, and be consistent in that and ask questions if you have any question, right? So that is the important part. What happens is that you lose motivation if you're on your own, or if you think, okay, I'll just watch the recordings, I will ask questions if I have any. But if you join the live Zoom session week by week, you actually create a momentum, and that psychologically subconsciously helps a lot. That's the reason we have created in this manner, right? About myself a little bit. My name is Arpit Pandit, and I have 18 years of network training experience. And out of this, the last 13 to 14 years, I have been training CCI, especially routing and switching and service provider. I myself have two CCIs. One is in routing and switching, and one is service provider. And I also work as a consultant with some service providers to provide them solutions for their SD-WAN issues and BGP core issues back into the core network, where they might be using Cisco or Juniper networks. Uh, I think I would say 12 to 13 years of CCI training experience already. Uh, my CCI number is 36410, routing, switching, and service provider. And since I work a lot of consultation work, I also incorporate anything latest going on into the technology, or other any issues they get, the troubleshooting. If it is not performance-based troubleshooting, like there you just raise the ticket and you wait for them to fix the physical aspect of the circuit. But if it is any other kind of issue, technology-wise or protocol-wise, I incorporate that or try to incorporate that into the training as well. So having said that, let's get started. So you do have this whole week, and I would say next week also to set up your OVA. Don't worry, because next week the first session, first class will be about subnetting. So you don't need OVA for that or EVNG for that. But from the later week, we will need the EVNG. We'll start the practical configuration labs right away, right? So thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.